All right. Hey guys, welcome to Hanging Out with Hamza. This is Hamza, and today I have a guest that I am super honored to have on here. She's a really close friend of mine, somebody that I love and adore so much. Her name is Allie. I actually met her pretty recently through a trip that we did together in Kenya. Allie is an OBGYN. She is also a TikTok celebrity with over 1.7 million TikTok followers. And she not only has that celeb lifestyle, but she's also a women's advocate. She's a health advocate, talks about reproductive health, education, and basically just empowering women through education on TikTok, which I think makes her even that much more special to me. You know, she has everything going for her, but she's always focused on helping people in every capacity, and she's always had her head on her shoulders, which has been something that I've loved so much about her. She's also a fellow FIGS ambassador and of proud Puerto Rican descent, and she's also been a recent South by Southwest speaker, which is why she's here in Austin right now. So I'm honored to have her on. Stay tuned for Allie.
Hey y'all, this is Hamza, and I'm super happy we get to hang out for a little bit.
All right, guys, welcome to Hanging Out with Hamza. As you guys have heard, I have an incredible guest on. Her name is Allie, and I gave you guys a little bit of a background about her, but I'll kind of hand it over to her and let her introduce herself for anything I might have missed.
Hi, Hamza. I'm super excited to be doing this today. I'm Allie. I'm an OBGYN, and I'm very, very passionate about women's health, women empowerment, and women's education, just from my experience on the lack of information out there for women particularly. So that has been my passion project and what started this whole TikTok, Instagram, crazy social media journey.
Right. Yeah, and I didn't want to make this just kind of focused around that. I think there's so much more to you. There's so many other beautiful qualities and traits you have that I adore as a friend, and that's what I want to kind of dive deeper into. And obviously, you know, this is a passion project podcast where we talk about passions and projects.
Right.
So I do want to talk about, you know, our shared nerdiness over Star Wars, among other things. But I'd also want to kind of address that stuff just so that people who may not already follow you on TikTok may have a chance to now, or even just kind of learn more about you through Instagram and the other mediums that you share a lot of your women's education and all your other kind of content on. So I'll start off with just kind of addressing your social media following and how you kind of got there and just the origin story of that, as you will. So just kind of a brief background. How did you kind of start to get into that field? Was it something you just planned ahead of time, or you just kind of fell into it and then realized what you were kind of bringing to the table at that point?
Yeah. I would say I've always really liked social media and Instagram particularly. I don't think I've told very many people this, and it just came to my mind, but in medical school, I actually had a YouTube channel, and it was more so sharing, like, that was around the time where YouTube was like, what's in my bag, or like what's like outfits and more like fashion and makeup related content. And I probably filmed 3 videos back then when I was in medical school. Nothing having to do with like healthcare or anything like that. And I actually I loved it, and it was so much fun, but I was so embarrassed by it that I ended up deleting the whole channel, which is crazy.
So it's completely gone. There's
there's no record of it.
Do you have the old videos you recorded at least?
Maybe on like my terabyte, like external hard drive.
Yeah.
That I could probably find, which would be really funny.
So did you originally start with YouTube and then go into the social media aspect of it?
Yeah, so I did that in medical school, and then when I got to residency, I mean, everyone already had Instagram at that point, right? Just like sharing vacation photos and stuff. Yeah. But when I became a resident, and this was back in 2016, where I was seeing my own like private patients and talking to women, that's what spun the idea of like, oh my gosh, I need to share information, because they were asking me what I had considered to be a basic anatomy question or a basic sex question. And so I was like, hey, I can start sharing on Instagram. Yeah. And so I would share just like a picture of me in the hospital or in scrubs, and then I'd be like, hey, let's talk about periods. And I'd give like a little blurb, right? Because there was no video format at that time. So I kind of started there, but it was very sporadic and every now and then. But everyone in my residency program kind of was like, oh, she's trying to be an influencer, like she's trying to,
Yeah.
But I was just like, no, I just want to get the information out there. And so I continued to do that throughout residency, where I would merge like healthcare, women's information, but then also with fashion and makeup.
Yeah.
And then when the pandemic or when TikTok really blew up, that's when I was like, oh, what is this TikTok thing? Let me download it. So I started changing my like still posts with written information into video format.
Okay.
And I started posting those on TikTok and it really got some traction and people really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So.
I wanted to address that, like your friends making fun of you thing. I know a lot of people listening to this have probably dealt with that. And for people that are interested in getting into social media, there's always that like initial fear you have of like people making fun of you for putting yourself out there or sharing more of yourself and being more open. And I dealt with it personally. And there is always that kind of like, oh God, are they going to like influencers in the wild me and stuff like that?
Yeah.
But I think you found a beautiful kind of like medium or like a middle ground where you were able to still be yourself, but educate people in the way you wanted to. And you did even dancing at one point, right? That was like a big part of your initial
I think
career.
that's how I kind of started on TikTok, because all like the dancing trends and stuff. And
yeah,
it was probably, I go back and I'm like, oh, that was so awkward and cringy, but
do you have any?
It was so fun.
Exactly. And do you have any advice for people who are initially kind of feeling that way, or anything that kind of helped you get over that hump of feeling fearful or nervous about that?
Yeah, I think in the beginning you're really concerned about that, like what are people gonna say, or like, oh, this isn't quote unquote professional, right? Like in being a doctor and a physician. But at the end of the day, like I was getting so much joy out of doing these little TikTok dances,
right?
Because I genuinely like to dance and I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, this actually brings me joy, so why not? And then you kind of get over it, and because deep down it's something that I liked to do, so why not share that with the world?
Kind of like an ends justifies the means situation. But
right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, outside of that, I think, the way your channel's grown and everything has naturally caused you to have such an influence on women themselves. And you've talked about how women have approached you and said that you've helped their vagina in public and stuff, which I think is amazing that you've had such a spread. But have you had any kind of like negative drawbacks to it, or anything that you kind of feel like people should be aware of if they ever do get to that level? Just kind of like a heads up or a warning for them, just how to keep their head on their shoulders and kind of maintain a more focused drive on it, because I'm sure it can get overwhelming with everything that happens with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think regardless of what you're doing on social media, when you put your life out there, or parts of your life, right? Because it's not my entire life,
right?
But you're always going to have someone give you a negative comment. You're always going to have a hater, because there's always people out there that are going to want to see you fail. And that's never going to change. Now, luckily, I am surrounded by a really strong support system and people that encourage me. But my biggest piece of advice, and I mean, I like to think I'm very independent and I do have a good head on my shoulders. Like I was very confident in all of that. But if you're going to start posting content, engage with the post for a little bit and let it go.
Yeah. Because
over time, the more comments, like people are going to start criticizing you, and it may not be the information you're presenting, but what you're wearing and what you look like. And I, early on, I would still, I'm like, oh, I got to respond to every comment. And then that's when I started seeing the mean comments come through, and it was really not good for my mental health, right? Because then you're like, maybe this person is right. Like maybe I should be, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So to save my mental health, I don't go back and read those comments, and I don't, because it's too dangerous and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like
you did mention that during your speech that, you give yourself like a 5-minute focus time on it. And then after 5 minutes, you just put your phone down. And I think that's something that after you said that, I would like literally wrote that down in my notes, because I do have that problem sometimes where like I'll post something and then I'll keep going back to it all throughout the day. And it's fun because, you're interacting with people and you're having so much engagement. But yeah, I feel like when you get to this level, sometimes the comments can start to slowly dwindle into the negative realm, and that can affect your entire day or your entire week. And so, yeah, you really do have to like compartmentalize or kind of put a real focus on, what the purpose was of that post and then move on to the next thing and not like kind of live in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah, because not everyone, like I said, is gonna like what you're saying or gonna
Yeah.
like or agree with what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if you're putting genuine content out there that you're passionate about and you like it and you're proud of what you're doing, remind yourself of that, right?
Right.
Like, because we can't live our lives like people pleasing, because that's never gonna be, we're never gonna be able to attain that.
Right.
So that's kind of what has worked for me, and what I tell a bunch of people, especially if you're starting out, just a good thing to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I kind of wanted to dive into like the selfish part of how we met. We did a Kenya trip together through a FIG service mission trip. There was a bunch of healthcare providers. So it was me, Allie, Erica, Bree, and Julian. And out of that entire group, I felt like I really drew to Allie. Just naturally, we were just close the entire time. And I think it's just because we were kindred spirits, we really connected on a lot of fronts, including just being nerdy Star Wars fans. And that's the moment when I really like appreciated who she was, not only as a professional and what she was able to do during that trip. I mean, she gave birth to kids with very minimum supplies, and it was, I didn't get to see it, but I like heard about it and I saw like a couple of pictures and snippets.
Yeah.
And my love and respect for her like was through the roof. And even just that entire time, like her warmness with me and just the comfort I felt around her is not something you feel so naturally with someone unless you know them for a long amount of time. But I just like almost instantly felt it with her. And even after that trip, we've been in touch. It wasn't one of those things where we were close during the trip and then after we just barely kept in touch. No, she like sends me random animal killing memes because we have this weird obsession with nature is metal.
Yes,
We
the
also
best Instagram page out there. It's so
yeah,
good.
she talks shit to me every day about
Every single day.
you know my random things that I like that she doesn't. And yeah, she's like a sister to me now, and that's basically our background of how we grew close together. And you know, the warmness I talk about as a male, like I can easily see why women would be so comfortable around her as an OBGYN, because she just has this aura of kindness with her, and it's so easily felt. And even through TikTok and everything, I think her fame and her fortune from all of it is so well deserved, and I'm so happy for her because she's gotten to this level just through being her genuine self, and she's maintained it this entire time. So yeah, just a little bit of me fangirling about her.
Thank you.
So I wanted to kind of go on into your nerdy part, obviously. So we both share the Star Wars thing together.
Yes.
The
best movies
ever. I just want to talk about, you know, on TikTok, you also do this. You talk about, you know, the video games you're playing when you're unwinding and just all the other stuff that you're really into outside of medicine. Do you want to kind of talk about that and how that helps you through your career and how that's kind of carried your, because I know it's a stressful profession. So how does that help you get through your career and how have you kind of focused on it?
Yeah, I think, again, because I started this social media thing on the basis or my niche is women's health and more of an extension of what I already do day to day, because I am practicing full time. A lot of the times it can lead to burnout faster because doing this whole social media thing, it truly is like a second job because takes a lot of time. I film, I edit, you know, I have multiple platforms that I'm sharing on. So I am very passionate about the things that do make me happy. And again, I always think about, I'm like, with social media, I don't ever want it to feel like a job, right? Like I always want it to feel fun and, you know, like an outlet. So along with that, it's not all women's health information. That's when I kind of trickle down into my passions where I'll share like, hey, I'm playing Dreamlight Valley on my Switch and I love it. And I can sit here for hours and I'm like, it's just so much fun and so relaxing to kind of unplug and use that like creative, but also mindless. Like you're just having so much fun building your little island and your character's super cute. And I really like stuff like that. So I'm able to kind of still post on social media, but also remind people like, hey, we all have different hobbies and interests, and that's beautiful. And I love being able to share that with people. So,
yeah. I think it also just humanizes you too, because I think people just assume that doctors are just these like strict 9 to 5 and then go home and like eat, sleep, and whatever. And it really humanizes you as a person. And it's nice to see that part of you. And I love that part of you because like you impress me with your amount of knowledge of not only Star Wars but all other things like video games and everything. So it's been fun. I also wore the shirt for you because of The Last of Us and zombie.
Your zombie apocalypse shirt.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what's the I guess what got you into video games and everything when you initially started getting into it? Was it around the time you were getting to med school, or have you always kind of been a video game person?
Yeah, I think, well, growing up, we were a big Nintendo family.
Did you start off with Super Nintendo, then N64?
Yeah, it was the original, like is it the Super Nintendo? The gray one where you like lift and you have to blow on the games to like get them to work. Like growing up with my sisters, we would play that, like the Ninja Turtles game on that is so much fun. Yeah. We grew up playing that. And then like the Mario where you go through all the little lands, and then the Yoshi games. Then we got the N64 and did like, we were huge Mario Party. We still are a Mario Party family.
Mario Party's great.
It's so much fun. And then from there we got the GameCube, Luigi's Mansion. Have you played Luigi's Mansion?
So good. I haven't played the new one, but the old one.
You haven't played the Switch one?
No, I heard it's amazing though.
Oh, Hamza.
Yeah, I need to get it.
Please play it.
Yeah.
Because the first one's really good. That was on the N6 or the GameCube.
Is it a remake or is it the continuation?
No, it's like, well, it's a whole new story.
Okay.
Same premise of like,
he's still got his like thing and everything.
Yes, and you have to find Mario and the princess and all that stuff. But I don't know if you played Luigi's Mansion 2. Not that great.
Good. No, I played the first one, not the second one.
But the third one, you have to get it.
Okay,
it's really good. So that one's really good.
I'm replaying Breath of the Wild right now because I just can't.
That's the Link.
Yeah, you haven't played that yet. I can't believe you haven't.
Wait, what is it?
Zelda Breath of the Wild.
I never got into Zelda.
But neither did I. But I think that's like probably one of the best games on the Switch, just because like it's open world and it like the physics and dynamics of that game is incredible. You'll love it. Yeah. Just give it a try.
And I will. And I know the thing is like once you get started with video games, like you just like can't, like the Harry Potter one right now. I'm very sad that I can't play that here on vacation.
Yeah.
I was just, because it hasn't come out on Switch yet. But I even told Corey that, like my husband who's here, I was just like, I'm going to miss not being able to play like, what is it called? Evermore? Pottermore? I don't even know the name of the game.
Pottermore? Or Hogwarts Legacy?
Hogwarts Legacy,
yeah,
thank you.
Pottermore is like the website.
You're right.
Okay.
So I when you start playing a video game initially, that's like all you can think about and all you want to do.
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite part of you is like, there's very few people I know that are like obsessive over things like that are nerdy. And it's nice to connect on that front because every now and then I'll watch your stories and you're just like lying on the couch playing your was it Stardew Valley?
No.
Sorry.
I don't play Stardew Valley. I know what Stardew Valley is. Corey wants me to play, but it's Dreamlight Valley.
Okay, it's like
it's Disneyland. It's not the same.
Okay.
It's like Animal Crossing, but cuter.
Okay.
And more tasks.
So you can do that in Breath of the Wild too. You can harvest and you can grab like crops.
So it's like WoW.
Yeah. No,
I really like WoW.
Yeah. Okay. You'll like Breath of the Wild. When you start it, I want you to let me know when you get into it.
Okay.
And get obsessed with it.
Okay.
But going from that, you mentioned that special person, Corey, and I also wanted to address your other special person, Erica, who are here right now. They were both here during the South by trip, and I got to meet them for the first time. I heard a lot about Corey when I was in Africa, and I heard what an amazing husband he is, what a great guy he is, and it was validated when I met him. And I think just being in your profession, being a strong, intelligent, independent woman, you have to have a certain type of guy that can support that. And that guy has to be equally as confident. And I talk about masculinity a lot. And I think the definition of masculinity is a guy that can be there to support his woman and not feel emasculated by her, no matter how successful, independent she is. And I think as you get into this career, that's harder to find that type of guy because a lot of guys tend to feel, insecure or whatnot. But Corey is not only great in his field, but he's able to support you in yours and be there for you when you need him. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of that when you were here, when you were doing your speech on the stage. Like, he was just constantly there to like lift you up and support you, even when you were grumpy and hangry and whatnot.
Never grumpy or hangry.
Yeah, of course not. That was not.
Those are things I would not consider myself ever.
Okay. Yeah. So just
never experienced those emotions. Can't relate.
Hypothetically, that that was from an outside perspective, but yeah, he's an amazing person. And Erica, who's your sister, your manager, your lawyer, she has all these like hats on her for you as a support role system. And I found out just how loving she is to you. And I think that relationship itself is so beautiful. And, you know, I envy that, because I think that's like such a rarity to have, like, in a sibling, especially when you get into a profession. And with what you do with TikTok, it's so cool to see you be able to work with your sister and do a lot of these events and have her be able to support you and carry you, and also just like have your back the entire time. And yeah, I wanted to bring up like one of the stories, but I don't know if that's like a good one to bring, the photo one.
Oh my God.
Because
the photo one, or my application photo.
Yeah, so if you want to talk about it, I think that's one of the best stories I heard this entire time, and I think people in med school or whatnot will get a kick out of this. So
yes. So I was a third year medical student, and so in third year of medicine, like the first 2 years are study years, so you're like doing lectures, but the last 2 years you're doing rotations. And so I was a third year medical student, and it was a fourth year. It was the beginning of my fourth year. And I was just about to start my residency applications. So I had decided to do a rotation at Brooklyn Medical Center in New York, where my sister used to live in New York at that time. So I'm doing my rotation there, and it's the night before the residency application, like system, right, online opens up. And I'm like trying to pick like, oh, what programs I'm applying to, all this stuff. And then I see at the very bottom, and it's like 9-10 p.m. It's late. And I'm in my sister's apartment, and it says like, you need a upload photo. Like, you can't submit your application unless you have a photo, like a professional one, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I get my sister, and I'm like, Erica, I don't have a photo. Like, what are we going to do? And so again, this was like 2015. And so she's like, we can do it. We can do it here. And she lives in like a little studio apartment. So it's just
typical New York apartment.
Correct. Like the kitchen, bathroom,
everything's
living,
one room.
Everything is like a hallway.
Yeah.
And so we have our little like point and shoot Sony or whatever it was, like camera, Canon.
Yeah.
And we're in her kitchen and setting up. She's got like a light on one hand and the camera. I'm in my like white coat, like squatting so we could get like a white background, and she takes this picture, and it's just like, it ends up being okay. We take multiple of them, right? I look professional.
Yeah.
There's like a yellowish hue to the picture because of like the terrible lighting. And so I'm like, whatever, it uploaded. I submitted my application. I was like, we're good to go. My sister's also now a photographer. Like, this is great. And so anyway, I go on my life, all this stuff. So then the residency application, you start to get called in for interviews and all this stuff. So the way it works is once you get an interview offer, they then email everyone like, hey, this is like the tentative schedule, breakfast, check-in. And then at the bottom of the email, they put all of the applicants, right? So then you're scrolling down to see what other applicants are there. And it's just like, it'll be like Jonathan Smith, University of Alabama. And then like the next, and it's like his picture. And then the next person's picture, and it's like saying their name, where they go to school. And then you like keep scrolling down in this like document. And then all of a sudden it's just this like huge blown up picture of me where you're like scrolling, and it's like you can see my eye, and then like slowly scroll down my face. And then you have to like do the sidebar motion on the computer to get to like Alexandra Rodriguez. And it's still like, now we're on my nose part of the picture. Like the picture was absolutely huge.
When she told us this story in the restaurant, I don't think I've like cried in a restaurant in a long time. Like probably getting dumped or something last time, but I was crying so hard, and just the thought of like getting that email and having to scroll through an entire face of Allie's was just like the best thing.
How embarrassing. And I was like, I forwarded the email to my sister. I was like, look at my picture. It's huge. No,
but then it gets better. Then you go to your interviews.
So I go to my interview, right? And you're like sitting in like this, the attending's like office. And they have this file of everyone's like application. So then they like bring out my file, and it's just one page of my picture. It's like the opening thing. And then they're just like, oh, flip the page. And it's just like a picture of my face just like this.
So that's a secret, guys. That's how you get into med school. You just make an obscenely large photo of yourself, and they won't even look at your credentials because they'll be too distracted by why the fuck did this girl put an entire photo of her face. But
It was absolutely terrible. Oh my gosh.
But outside of that, her sister is amazing, and this is what she'll do for you.
Photography is not her strong suit. We have now learned that it is not.
If you ever want to know how good she is at photography, go back to Ali's post about sights and sounds in Africa. When we were in Africa, Erica, being the incredible manager of Ali, has to sometimes take over her role when she's unable to do something. And in this case, Ali gave her the power to post while we were in Africa because
never again. Lesson learned.
Wi-Fi was very limited, so Erica decided to post a sights and sounds of Africa, and one of them just includes a giant picture of a picture of a chicken running around.
Of a rooster. That's not even. Here's the thing: if you go to my page, right, it's all like, like vaginal discharge, and it's all very organized on like a clickable post, and it's cute. And then all of a sudden, like I think in Kenya, we woke up, we were like at breakfast.
Yeah.
And someone, I don't know who it was, someone's like, hey, did your account get hacked?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my Instagram, because internet again. So then I'm like, then we have to go to like a certain spot to like log on to the Wi-Fi.
Our Wi-Fi like resets every day. We don't have like a code. We have to like go ask the front desk. So it's like a whole process to even just get on the internet. And then, so basically Erica was, but that's like in trend now to just photo dump and stuff. Right. So I think
random animals, sights and sounds of Africa.
Yeah. So props to Erica for jumping on that trend before it even started.
Yeah.
So while we're in Africa, this came up and everybody basically got on their phone and pulled up Ali's post, and we were just cracking up because like we didn't know Erica, but we loved her instantly from there because we just I felt this like amazing humor from Erica just from that post by itself. And she had this little emoji. She's not a big emoji person.
No, she hates emojis because she doesn't like technology, so she can't figure out how to use emojis properly. So then it was just like the little stars, and it's like sights and sounds of Africa, and like a little, I don't even know what else she used, like another little star. And it was just, and then like the cropping of the rooster, it's like decapitated. All you see is like its body and like its legs. It's not even like I kept it up on my feed so you can scroll back.
I think it's going to be your most popular post in the next 2 or 3 years.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
Yeah.
But on the subject of my sister, like she truly is incredible.
She is.
And helps me in all aspects of life, but has truly, and I don't even know if it just like happened organically or what, but whenever social media like started becoming something and I started getting more of a following, she just kind of, I didn't even have to ask her. She just took
the role on.
She just took the role on, which was really cool.
And Erica is a lawyer, so I think this is also something I think people who are listening to this, if you ever do get to the space of getting as many followers as Ali, it's important to really read all the contracts and things you get from other companies offering you chances to work with them. I think that's something I've not done as well, and I've learned a lot from Erica in that regard too, is like you really have to read the fine print on these contracts, and you have to really understand that a lot of this stuff can be renegotiated. And I think unfortunately being ambassadors, and also on top of that being influencers in healthcare, we're so used to just being in healthcare that this is such a new realm to us when it comes to business and reading contracts and whatnot. So companies easily take advantage of that, and
absolutely
you've really kind of struck a gold mine with Erica to be able to understand that realm of it and take advantage of it and really do well in it. And I think that's something that would be worth addressing to people. Like if there's any example or anything you want to mention to them in that realm.
I think, again, when we were starting off, since this is all new to me and my sister, we didn't really know, like, you get an offer, like, oh, for one TikTok, we'll offer you this. And then I was like, wow, that sounds great. But then once we started talking to more people, or even just like learning on YouTube, like how to navigate this new career or this new path, keep in mind that especially if you are like in healthcare, as I know a lot of my followers are like FIGs, right? Ambassadors and stuff like that. We are professionals in our field, and we went to school for many, many years. So we do have the credentials and the credibility, right? It's not like we have like, I don't know, like a Joe Schmo down the street who like has no doesn't know anything about toothpaste or
Right.
dentistry is telling you, use this toothpaste or charcoal or whatever you guys do now.
Yeah. Thanks. We use the diamonds now. And
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm just saying, like, there's value to that, right? You have your expertise and your experience, and that's worth a lot.
yeah.
So always, which is uncomfortable, right? Because I think in healthcare, you're taught to kind of keep that down, right? Like, you don't want to like
Yeah.
oversell yourself, or you're like, oh, you don't want to be looked at as like the gunner or the overachiever. So
Right.
you kind of suppress all of that, and you try not to be this like prideful person, or because then those people get kind of bullied for doing that.
Yeah.
So there's
And I
like
think
a
I'm
balance.
also like a lot of us are non-confrontational or people pleasers. So like, you know, sometimes I'll get a contract from someone and they'll offer something and then I'll look at it and I'm like, oh, this is too long, or this is not enough money like for the time that they're asking for. And I'm just like, okay, no, I'm not going to do this. But like, what I didn't realize, which what Erica taught me, is like, you can ask them for more money, or you can ask them for like less time, or like you can change those terms around, and you don't realize your value because you just think that this is like fine print and it's written in cement and you're never going to be able to change it. But like a lot of the times they have, like she said, a lot of money like in the reserve. They're just giving you the least amount because they're like,
there's always room in the budget.
yeah, that's what I learned. And I wrote that in my
room in the
notes.
budget.
Yeah. So keep that in mind, guys. If you're ever in that kind of situation, don't be afraid to renegotiate or talk about that stuff. And, you know, if you renegotiate and they turn you down, like it's no different than if you would have turned them down originally. So you have nothing to lose.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Good. That's good.
You
reference.
never miss a shot you don't take. What is that?
Yeah. You killed. Yeah. Nailed
you
it.
miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You miss every shot you don't take. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Good job.
Exactly.
She knows sports, guys. She's a big sports fan.
No, I do like sports. You don't.
Yeah,
You're
I
not
know
a
you
sports
do.
person.
You know more sports than me.
Absolutely.
Like, what's your favorite team?
For basketball?
Yeah.
The Phoenix Suns.
Okay. And
Or Arizona for
Okay.
college ball.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how'd you get into sports? Is it because of Corey, or you always been into sports too?
No, like family.
Okay.
Corey.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'm just kidding. Corey is really into sports too. I would say our dad had such a huge role in a lot of things, as far as like our love for Star Wars stems from my dad.
Right.
Because my mom is not, I'm not even sure my mom has seen Star Wars. Like,
Yeah.
maybe.
It's unfortunate.
But it is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I remember as like really, really little when we first watched Star Wars, I remember my dad like sitting us down and being like, this will change your life.
Yeah.
And it was just like, that's so true.
Yeah.
And then same with like sports. My dad was always a huge sports fan, and not just basketball, with kind of everything.
Yeah.
So I think we just kind of got that passion from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like you break so many like stereotypes and whatnot, and like it's cool because you would meet you and you'd never assume that you're like into all these different things, which is my favorite part of you. But on the subject of Star Wars now, let's dive further into it.
Let's do it.
Favorite, if you had to pick one, I know it's a hard question. What would you say your favorite Star Wars movie is? And why? And least favorite and why?
Oh, that one's easier.
I can
Least
pick, yeah.
favorite is going to be episode, let's see, 8 of the new ones.
Right. Those don't even exist. They can just fuck off.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
Okay.
have issues because Corey feels the same way, as far as like, those are garbage, like burn them. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel bad saying that because I'm like, but it's still Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, it's, but it definitely is
Yeah.
episode 8. That is garbage.
Yeah. No, I think the reason I don't like them is like they try to continue the Skywalker legacy when they should have just stopped it. Like, it's a whole galaxy. Like,
Right.
you have so many amazing storylines and so many different ways you could have gone, but they just went back to like the linear Star Wars story,
Yeah.
and they didn't even maintain like any kind of like path. Like, they just
The thing is, there's unfinished stories there.
yeah.
They presented stuff where you're like, that could be cool.
Right,
And
and
then they don't,
And they
like
built
the
up
little
stuff.
Jedis.
Yeah.
And then my problem is, whenever Leia, like, they blow up the ship, and then she's like floating in space, and
there.
she's Superman's in.
Yeah. Dumb.
What?
Super dumb.
It's like, did we know she could do that? Like,
and they
so
use
strong.
the Force for like every excuse, which is fine. I love the Force. You use
No,
the
no,
Force,
no. But they abused it.
Yeah, it was like the mulligan they used for everything.
It
and I
was,
think
yeah.
that was-
So that's definitely my least favorite. I would say my favorite is either A New Hope and probably Empire Strikes Back.
Okay. Empire's mine, so
Yeah, I would say A New Hope. Here's because Corey and I recently started rewatching all of them,
Right.
and I hope we continue to do this, like, just every year.
like a tradition.
A New Hope is a little rough because Luke is so dumb.
Yeah.
And like when you watch it, you're like, he's so childish.
Yeah.
And like so like, oh, Uncle Owen, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know. It was just like, it felt a little whiny.
Yeah.
But that's part of his like character development.
Yeah, and I think
too.
he was also the first. He hadn't fully developed his character. Like they weren't even sure if they're going to make additional ones, right? So
Right. But I think Empire Strikes Back is a good one. I mean, the original 3. And then of the newer ones,
Right.
Rogue One is by far.
Yeah, Rogue One is so good.
So
Did you see
good.
Andor?
Yes.
I know you didn't like the first 3, right? You said it was boring?
No,
Or-
you said it was boring.
I did
and
say.
you offended me.
Somebody said it was boring, and I then stuck to that thing. But after the 3rd episode, it gets really good.
Oh my god. I thought Andor was the best show of
Yeah,
2022.
it was. And it was the same director of Rogue One, which is why I think
Yeah.
it was amazing.
And they use the same set people from Chernobyl,
yeah,
which you really like.
I love Chernobyl, yes.
Which Chernobyl's so boring.
So, yeah, it's just too many big words for Ali. But,
No, I really liked Chernobyl, but you're right. The last episode with like the lawyer.
yeah. Well, I mean,
There's just no action there. You're just some man is like pacing.
they're
and like,
explaining how
oh my god, radiation, and you're just.
they're
and I was
explaining
just like,
how a nuclear reaction works. Like that's the most fascinating thing. They like dumbed it down for us too.
it was not dumb enough for me.
I mean, it's
You
alright,
know,
yeah.
there's like certain areas in my brain
Yeah.
where when I choose to not be interested in it,
Yeah.
we can't open that again.
Yeah, like-
Physics,
Mm-hmm. Dua Lipa.
Dua Lipa,
Yeah.
garbage.
Guys, let's just get this off. My ex-girlfriend and really somebody that's close to me, Dua Lipa.
Oh my gosh. I was like, wait, there's a tie here with your ex and Dua?
No, I mean,
This is ridiculous. Cancel. We're done.
there's
recording.
a direct tie, but it's just really unfortunate that Allie, as much as I love her, just did not appreciate that relationship, and that's why we had to unfortunately cut ties. Because I love Allie so much, I decided to end that.
So
And,
ridiculous.
you know, it's something that we have to just move on from.
Yeah. But here's something I do like to share of how my brain works. And I remember this when I was like in 2nd grade.
Okay.
And I've always really liked math
Mm-hmm.
and multiplying, all that stuff. And then we get to fractions and percentages. And I remember being this like little 2nd grader watching my teacher, and I was like, I don't like this.
So you just shut off.
So I shut off.
Oh wow.
And I said, I don't want to learn fractions and I don't want to learn percentiles. I was like, this is silly.
So do you
And
still
I
not know
really-
it right now?
What?
Like, do you still not understand how that works?
I do, but I'm not great at it.
Okay.
Like whenever it's like tipping and stuff, I'm really bad at it because I
Did
just
you do
don't.
that with spelling too? Because I know this weekend I found out that Allie's spelling skills are
I would like to be a better speller,
yeah.
but I think that's my ESL. Is speller not a word?
Speller.
Oh my god.
Is a
Okay, no,
word.
my sister's looking at me like she's so disappointed.
Your sister is such a like manager and agent. It's awesome. Like I feel like I'm in a studio and I keep looking at her to make sure like the
I know. I'm like,
question's
was
okay.
what I'm saying is it pre-approved? Like, is it legally? Am I safe?
Yeah. I'm like
No.
gonna get a letter from her lawyer, literally her lawyer sister soon. So
No, but I think like it's really funny because now I'm really bad at like even like measuring cups. Like I really like to cook,
yeah.
but if I need to like cut something, I'm like, oh my god, Corey, what's half of 1/4?
Have you heard about the palm trick? How like your palm represents like a cup or like a spoon?
I don't
right,
believe
Zay?
this.
Yeah.
I don't believe
All right,
this.
I'll stop that.
Also, it gets messy.
Yeah. Well,
So
just for future reference, if you
no.
ever need.
that's a bad advice.
Um,
Unless it's the end of the world and I can't find a measuring cup, we're gonna have to go off
Yeah.
of.
Okay, going off that, what's your Last of Us input so far? You
I
haven't
love
played
it.
the video game, so that's unfortunate.
No, but we don't have a PS5,
Okay,
which I think we need to buy
yeah.
because I really just want to play that game.
You can literally just make one TikTok and you can buy a PS5 off that money. So, check.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I need to. I think the show was fascinating. The pilot episode.
Yeah.
My favorite pilot that I've seen up till
And
this point.
Just so everybody knows, you have a crush on Pedro Pascal.
Pedro.
Who else? The Andor guy.
Oh, Diego Luna.
And
I love and Oscar Isaac.
so she has a type,
big three.
obviously. Brown men with gray hair, right? Is that a thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
older.
Okay. Corey's right outside of that, but he's,
yeah, Corey's just,
he's nailed it regardless. So
he's
congrats,
a
Corey.
man. That's what they share in common.
Have you got some grays yet, Corey? Almost, yeah.
Yeah,
No, so he's almost there.
but just on your beard, not on your head.
just needs a tan. At least,
Just needs to tan. Yeah.
Corey, you just know she's ever next to an old brown guy with gray hair. You just have to like keep a close eye on her. But yeah, I'm gonna go into like in terms of your social media again. I don't want to keep going back to this, but I am curious, like, you know, with TikTok being kind of on the unstable front right now with everything going on with lawmakers.
Government.
You did kind of address with me earlier how you're kind of having a backup plan with this, but do you want to kind of go into further detail, like what your plans are for the next 4 to 5 years? Do you have kind of a timeline of how you want to carry this platform that you have?
Yeah. I don't know that I have a set timeline. I know I meet with Erica, with my sister, about, like, we meet pretty regularly. Yearly, we do like a yearly recap, and then maybe like quarterly, just to see what, if I want to expand into other things, like whether it's like, you know, doing this on YouTube or starting a podcast or like starting a newsletter or something like that. Like, we always meet with like, what do we want to do next?
Like a vision board kind of?
Yeah. Like a vision board. So we recently, especially because of this whole TikTok, I would say recently, but within the year, realized the importance of having a backup plan, because if TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, any of these things decide to shut down, I don't own my stuff that's on there, right? It belongs to Instagram or TikTok. So I have my website, and I encourage anyone who, again, is wanting to make a career out of this or having it as like a side hustle, have an email list. Make your own website. And I think a lot of people think, well, blogs are outdated, no one's going to turn to them. But the positive thing of having your own website and blog is that you own that. That's your creation. You get to decide what you put on it, what you can take off, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So by having a email list, and you get emails and people that sign up, then you have a market of people that if TikTok were to close, you could still send them content. Mm-hmm. You could still post videos on there and have that grow and grow and grow, because that's your little group, your like little group of people that are involved in you.
Just to kind of dive deeper, because I didn't know what the email list entailed. Like, that was the first time I've heard about it. I actually do have email lists, like from Young Pueblo and all these like other poets and whatever on Instagram, and it makes sense why they do that now. And for me, it was like I subscribe to it because I like getting those weekly emails. So with your weekly emails, is it weekly or bi-weekly?
Right now we're doing bi-weekly.
Okay. And you send out information, I'm assuming, about women's reproductive systems, and just like...
and it's kind of a hodgepodge of stuff, because some weeks I'll focus on like I think one that's coming out soon is how to find an OBGYN, or how to find a provider that's best for you, as far as like, is it going to be a midwife, an OBGYN, or a family physician that's going to care for you during pregnancy? So stay on the lookout. That one's coming up. Okay. But then the next week it may be like, these are my favorite makeup products of the month.
Okay.
Just because I am still passionate about like fashion and all that stuff. So I'm able to kind of do a little bit of both, like lifestyle and also educational content.
Right.
And right now, we do those bi-weekly, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. And in terms of like, I guess when you do send these out, do you write these yourself? Like, how do you collect this information, and do you kind of gauge what audience are interested in and then create these emails based off of that? Or do you just try to like create some variety in it?
Yeah.
And stuff like that?
So recently we started working with another company to help us, because it becomes overwhelming,
right?
Like, I'm still posting on TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So with this company, I sit with her monthly, and she'll give me like ideas herself, or like, she's also a woman. So she's like, hey, I've been curious about like, what's a normal discharge, or what's a normal period. So then she sends me the questions, and I'll answer for her, or give her like bullet points. And then she translate that into the newsletter.
Okay.
And she makes like, she picks the photos that go on there and like makes it all clickable and all of that stuff. While I do like learning the creative side of like how to build my website, because I did build it myself, it's also very time consuming.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so I don't have the time to do that. So having Maddie handle that for us has been really cool and really helpful. Yeah. She's great.
And on that subject, with everything you do, like, you do so much, and even with Erica's help, I still feel like you have a lot on your plate. You know, you're an OBGYN, you're a doctor, you are posting stuff constantly. How have you found your time to be able to balance everything on top of having a personal life with playing video games and whatnot? Have you kind of created a routine, or do you just like, are you still figuring that out right now?
I would like to think I've created a routine, but I'm 100% still figuring it out.
Really?
And I have really good weeks and I have really bad weeks, and it all really depends on like what my personal, like my call schedule is.
Yeah.
Because that reflects a lot of it.
Yeah.
But being an OBGYN, it's so unpredictable.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, like, sometimes I talk to you and you're working through the weekend, or sometimes you're off for a while. So it's not a consistent schedule like a dentist, you know, like we're working Monday through Friday. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I think that's really hard, because as humans, we do best with routines.
Right.
So on the weeks where I'm like 2 weeks ago, I was on call, and we do 24-hour calls. So I was on for 24 on a Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday, all in the same week. And that destroyed me.
Wow.
Like, I was extremely exhausted. I did have plans to whether shoot content, have meetings with people, meet with Erica. It all went down the drain because when you're running on such little sleep, like, it's really hard to balance that. So I'm still trying to figure out what works best.
Yeah.
But I constantly have to remind myself, and I'm thankful for Corey and Erica and my parents that like remind me of like, just take it one step at a time, like slow down.
Yeah.
It is okay if you're not posting all the time. Like, it is okay if not everything is perfect.
Yeah.
You need to rest.
Yeah. I mean, people listening to this definitely need to take that advice from you out of all people. And I'm like a big advocate, obviously, for mental health and whatnot. And I think you being able to talk about this stuff, despite like all your success, to be able to say like when to put your phone down is so important, because we live in like a culture of like a grind culture or a hustle culture. And it's sad because I think, you know, people who probably watch your stuff probably look like, wow, she has so much going on in her life. She's so successful. She's killing it on here and there. But like, they don't realize like it does take a toll mentally on you. And
absolutely,
as beautiful of a person as you are, like, it does beat you down to a certain level. Like, and you know, it can affect your mood and whatnot. So like, if you don't mind just going further into that and how you've worked, like how your mental health has been able to cope through this, and like, do you see a therapist to kind of help with it? Do you have any ways to cope with like when you do get overwhelmed and whatnot? How that can help people? And
I think again, it like comes in waves sometimes, because depending on like what my schedule was this week, so like I could be doing really well, and then like I have a really hard call shift where like I don't get to sleep for 24 hours, and then that, like, when you're running on such poor sleep, like, you become so negative. And I think like Corey can really vouch for this, because like I'll come back from working a 24-hour shift and I like will sometimes just start crying, or like will be so feeling so miserable inside. I go to bed, I wake up in like 4 hours, and I'm the most negative person. Like, the world is falling apart, right? Like, in my mind.
Yeah.
And I just like get to this really dark place, and he's just like, this isn't who you are.
Yeah.
Like, this is just your lack of sleep. Like, you need to just rest. Because then I want to wake up and do things. Because then I wake up and I don't do things. Now I'm lazy. Now I'm like, so it's this like really bad cycle. So it's having a really strong support system that like continuously reminds you, and being able to like have people around me that I can call and be like, hey, I'm not doing well. Like, that has been really helpful for me. That's been like the biggest thing. And
I think you've put that in your story sometimes. You'll just say like, I've been out of it for the last day and a half or whatever. And I think that's awesome that you're able to also say that, because not a lot of people share that part of themselves. And sometimes they'll go radio silent, but they won't explain why or whatnot, and people will just assume, oh, they're doing other stuff or they're busy, whatever. But you actually normalize that too, which
and I like to, because at the end of the day, like, I am human, and like I never want people to feel that like I'm living this like incredible perfect life. Like, that's just the opposite.
Right.
I'm saying this comes in waves, like every other week, right? Like every 5 days is something that like it's really a struggle. So don't feel like you need to have it all together. And the reason I share it is because it is normal, and I want people to like, we can normalize these conversations, because you don't have to be a doctor or have this life to feel this way.
Yeah.
Anyone can get it in any profession, right? Burnout is real across the board.
Right.
So
yeah. And then in terms of like just being an OBGYN, do you feel like it's ever interfered with your, like, because we work in healthcare and the HIPAA and everything that goes on? I know you did address this when we were watching you at the South by event, but I do want you to dive deeper into this for people who weren't able to attend that. How have you been able to manage privacy, and how do you approach that? Because I think a lot of people, unfortunately, in healthcare haven't followed that rule, or have been, you know, in a lot of heat for it. And so for anybody that's listening that wants to get into that, do you have any kind of like set rules that you have or focus on to avoid anything like that happening to you? Because I'm sure even at this level, it's always a risk anytime you share something.
Right, exactly. And I think like first and foremost, like, you cannot share any sort of patient information.
Right.
And
this is a standard.
Right.
No matter who you are, like pharmacists, dentists, doctors, like HIPAA is HIPAA, and no matter how famous you are. Right,
exactly. The other thing is like, I know other content creators will film like in the hospitals, or like do like a dance trend in the And I tend to not do that. Like I have filmed from my call room.
Yeah.
Because we do have sleep rooms.
Right.
And it's not like when I'm on call that like every single minute, certainly there are shifts where I'm busy all the time. But if I have like downtime, like I have filmed that. I'm going to start not doing that. But I think just that is going to look different for everyone.
Right.
But for me in particular, like I don't think in order for me to get the information out there, I don't need to share that patient encounter, right? Like I can turn it in a way of like presenting the information without including someone else.
Right.
Again, like even if it is like a patient story, it's always really important. And if you do want to share the story, change it.
Right.
Like change either like the time frame that it happened, the age of the patient, like the whole situation, like it needs to be different and changed. Excuse me. And I think you can still get that information out there without having to include someone in it.
Have you ever had a situation where a patient said like, hey, I think that was me you're talking about, or never been like that?
No. But I think I've always been very careful to like not do that, or not like
directly,
I guess like right, like I guess de-identify or like not share that. So I've never encountered that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good advice. And then have you ever had on that subject patients say like, hey, I came to you because I saw you on TikTok, or even just mention later on that they like saw you after seeing you on TikTok? Yeah.
And I think I have a lot of the patients that I do see are because of TikTok.
Oh, wow.
Like I never share my employer, and I never share like the office or the hospital or anything like that. But again, that's like public information.
Right.
Like if you Google me, you're going to see
exactly
where I work.
It's probably
like,
going to be the first thing that comes up too when you Google you, right? It's not like your LinkedIn or something will come up. So
yeah, exactly. So I do get a lot of patients from TikTok.
Yeah.
Or sometimes like if I deliver like my partner's patients or something like that, they're always like, can you take your mask off? And I'm like, why? And then like I'll kind of like take my, and they're like, oh my God, are you Dr. Allie? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's me.
That's
and
awesome.
Like, oh my God, I follow you. So at first it was very awkward for me because I didn't really know how to act, but now I'm very proud of what I do. I feel like it kind of started as like I was a little embarrassed by it, but now I'm like,
I've seen you in public with your fans, and you're really good. It
feels weird. It's not fans or people.
Your viewers, your whatever. I mean, I'm a fan, and you're great at interacting with them, and I think you're very open and respectful too. And you've never, I don't know, you just don't have any kind of like airs or anything about it, which is great. But yeah, I think since you're an OBGYN and I'm a male, I've figured I'd ask like, is there anything I guess on the forefront right now in your field that you're really passionate about, or something you really want to kind of speak more on while you're on this podcast, or anything that you've been noticing is on trend?
Like a topic, or
like anything that in research, because we talked about that Malarian thing yesterday, which I thought was amazing. Like I never knew about that. Is there anything else that you think is really interesting right now that you're looking into? Yeah,
I think like subjects that people aren't like normally talking about, like we went to like one of the menopause talks yesterday. Like I think that's really important, because even as like me who's 34, right, like menopause, hopefully like my mom went through it in her 50s or like early 50s, like you usually follow like what your parents and grandparents went through, but it's still like to be able to educate even at a young age, like this is what's coming and this is what we can do to prevent XYZ symptom. That's really important. I want to be better on sharing more of like egg freezing or like fertility type stuff, because we do know that in the day and age that we live now, women are waiting later in life to have children. Especially women like in professional careers. Like they want to finish their career first, or their education, I should say, before starting to have a family. So I've shared a couple posts on that, but I think kind of getting more accessible information out there is important. But also one of the things I want to focus on this year is more Spanish content, because I'm Puerto Rican and Spanish was my first language. And obviously growing up in a Latin American household, the whole subject of women's health is like stigma. And it's like very taboo. It's very much like, oh, we're going to talk about it, but like, let's close the door. Let's like whisper about it. Like you don't want to openly talk about periods or make a man uncomfortable when you're talking about it. So I haven't seen very many like Latina OBGYNs sharing about that in Spanish.
I think that's awesome. And even as a guy, I think it's been cool since knowing you. I've learned so much about, pregnancy and even the things she talked about yesterday about estrogen and how like alcohol affects it and everything, I think that was like amazing. So yeah, if you ever are open to also sharing it for men to educate them on that, because I think there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And people assume like, oh, like this is just geared for women, but it is interesting to know, especially if you're a guy dating someone or married to someone. It's good to,
I mean, you all know someone, right? Like you have a mom, a sister, a cousin, a friend, a girlfriend. Like I do get some of my video ideas from Corey. Like he'll just be like, hey, I think it'd be cool if you like talk about this, or like maybe like film it in this trend way and like all this stuff. And so I think like men can also benefit from the info.
Corey and I are probably the same. Like I honestly didn't know what menopause was for a long time, and it's like I was almost scared to even ask, because like you just like feel like it's not your realm, it's not your place to ask. And I like that you like remove that fear and you educate us no matter who you are. Right. And even being in that talk yesterday, it was weird because there were not a lot of other men, and the men that were there were usually with somebody else. So like just to be able to open that audience up to men to also normalize being able to teach them, and
and how to be supportive, or like what they can do to like
especially if you have daughters, to be able to like understand your daughters and make them feel comfortable with talking about their periods and stuff like that, which is great. So you're doing awesome stuff with that, and thanks for teaching me about the vagina and whatnot.
You're so welcome.
It's such a fascinating,
it is.
But I guess going off that, did you have any questions or concerns for me, since this is a dual podcast? Any curiosities on your end
about you?
Yeah, or you can talk shit if you want, but I'll just cut it out later.
No, I really appreciate our friendship, and I think like when we first met, like through Figs, which I'm really thankful for, like you always say, we really just gravitated towards each other. And I think it was like mainly rooted on like our passions and like nerdiness, and we were able to connect on that. But I think generally you have such a good heart and such a heart for people.
Thank you.
And like I am so proud of you for doing this and doing this like passion project with your podcast. And I'm gonna continue to encourage you to post on TikTok, and like you're so passionate about like pop culture, and I love following your stories, because when you do like your music, like your tune, what do you call it?
Top Tunes Day.
Yeah, that like it's just fun to see how much information you know about like artists.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
really sad. I have no other information.
No, but it's really cool. You're like, oh, Drake made this song, but like he spun it from like whatever 1960 whatever jazz player, and I'm just like, that's real. I think those are like really cool facts and information.
Thank you.
And you can see how much time you put into it and how much passion you have behind it, which I think is really cool. Like I love seeing what people are passionate about. Like I don't care about I care about your career, but I'm like, I want to genuinely know like what excites you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool what you're doing. So I encourage you to keep posting that.
Thank you.
Because it's fun.
I will. Yeah. And I mean, that's why I did this podcast. I think like the way I connected to you was like when you talked about your passions. Like I said, when I do these podcasts and people talk about them, their faces literally like light up, and you learn so much more from people when they're passionate about something, because they're like, they get into the nitpicky details about it, and they want to tell you like how they like their perspective on it and stuff. And I think you learn more about that subject because you're so much more connected to it. And that's why I even love your TikToks, because when you do talk about it, you can actually see your passion in it, and like you can see that you love talking about it. It's not like you're just getting in front of the camera, you're like, okay, today I just got to talk about this subject and get it over with. And I think that's what separates you from 90% of the other healthcare TikTok people. I'm super excited to see where you're going to go in the next couple of years. You're going to
it'll be fun. There's good things coming.
Yeah.
The future's scary. Change is scary and uncomfortable, but I think that's where people learn and grow.
Yeah.
And it's like in the times of like the moments of like either failures or being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I prefer to talk to someone about that, because I can learn from that as opposed to like all these like success and like accomplishments and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you seem like the type of person who takes blows really well. Like you're able to grow from them. And I forgot to mention one of your passions, which I learned so much about through you and Zai, because you guys are both really into this weird culture. But
wait, what?
Purses.
Oh my god.
You guys are so into purses.
I love a good purse.
I think the listeners need to at least understand a little insight about this, because this is such a fascinating culture. It's like sneaker culture, but to
better.
Another degree, and usually geared towards women. But yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your favorite?
Absolutely.
And also why?
Oh my gosh. So I love bags, and I love luxury bags.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know like why I'm so passionate about it.
Like
I
what
just think
is there
they're
something
so
that got you to
beautiful.
it? Like did you buy one and then you just like
Probably my mom.
yeah.
And not that like she would like we grew up and she's like buying all these nice bags, but my mom really likes to shop and it's always really fun. So I remember even being really little, like we'd go into these stores and she wasn't buying anything, but like just see like the bags up there on display. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
was
like
just
art.
like it truly is art. Some of it is an art form to learn. And I'll watch the videos on how like
They develop
Dior,
them.
yes, Dior is my favorite brand.
Okay.
And so I'm like subscribed to their YouTube channels. Like I'll watch like how they like with like the needle and thread make some of like their book totes, or how they like get the leather and put like the metal pieces to it. Like it really is a form of art, and it's really relaxing for me to like watch and learn. And it makes me appreciate these bags more when I actually spend my money on them.
Right. Like the craftsmanship behind it.
Yeah, and they're just so beautiful. It like sparks me so much joy.
Yeah.
Again, I tell everyone because I share that on like TikTok and like I make reels about like my designer bags, and I don't make it in the sense of like
flexing.
Like, oh, look at this flashy bag. I'm like, it generally makes me so happy.
Right. That's how I feel about like sneakers and Tesla. It's like it sucks because it's also in a culture that's a lot of build on flexing it and showing it off, but there is so much beauty behind the craftsmanship of it. Right. And sometimes you just like you can distinguish who's doing what, and I think in your case you can easily see that you're doing it based on like your personal passion for it.
Yeah.
And you taught me about Birkins, which I like didn't know about,
which is unbelievable that you don't know what
I know it's really embarrassing.
It's kind of embarrassing.
I know,
sad.
but you know I'll just get over that. But tell me about the Birkin situation.
Yeah.
And like
so I don't have a Birkin, and it's
so
Hermes is the brand, right? And it's like the most expensive types of bags.
Right.
We're talking like in the resale market, it's like $30,000.
Okay.
So not something that I'm like going towards or ever like that's I can look at that number and be like, this is an absurd amount of number.
Yeah.
Like or a certain amount of money to spend on one thing.
Right. But the culture behind it is amazing. Like it's just such an interesting thing that like it's hard to get, and you can't just go and get it.
Yeah, you can't just walk into a store and ask to see a bag.
Yeah.
Don't be ridiculous.
Which is wild to me. Like, you know, it's like, and like, how can you attain one? Do you have to be of a certain like background?
Like you have to have spent X amount of money. Again, I've never purchased anything from Hermes, so I can't. But like my understanding from YouTube and stuff, you have to buy certain items and like accrue like. Oh, this person has spent like $10,000 on our store.
Okay.
And then they then your SA, your sales associate, can present to you a bag.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like kind of a different little like community and culture and all this stuff. So
you have to get to round 3. You want me to tell them that story?
You can't.
What you tell them, because I don't want to ruin it.
I don't even remember. Oh, we were at the airport in the baggage claim.
Yeah. And
we ran into these people. Corey's wearing a State 48
shirt.
This
is an example, guys, of how non-business oriented our heads are, and Allie will display that.
So Corey was wearing a State 48 shirt, which is a really popular brand in Arizona. And so some guy at like the baggage claim was just like, "Oh, are you from Arizona?" And then we were all ended up being on the same flight because we're all waiting at the same baggage claim.
Right.
Anyway. And so, he's like, "Oh, are you here for South by?" And he's talking to Corey. And the guy was like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna be a speaker and like presenting our like company or whatever." It's like Popolo or is like the name of their company.
Mm-hmm.
And what is like a buy? Oh, I remember. So he was explaining to us. They're like, "Yeah, no, I run this company that like pins podcasts against each other to like
gamifies it."
Yeah, like gamifies it. Yeah, that's what he kept saying. And I'm like, "Oh, cool!" Like I'm like, And then he's like, "Yeah, no, so we." We do one round and then it goes to the next one. He's like, "I'm really hoping we make it to round 3 so that we go." So in my mind, when he's saying this, I'm like, yeah, like March Madness. I'm like, okay, you have like, you first start, then you go to like the Sweet 16. I'm like, they're probably in the Elite 8 because it's like round 3. Like, Here we go. So then we all leave, right? And then I bring this up to Corey and Eric. I'm like, interesting concept of like doing like a March Madness bracket with podcasts. And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, that guy's like concept. I hope he makes it to round 3 when he like presents it to people."
Yeah, and we just kept bringing up this round 3 joke the rest of the weekend.
I still don't know what that means.
We can go into it later, but yeah, basically, it's
Again,
not what you thought it was. So
it's clearly you guys were laughing at me.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm wrong."
Yeah.
On that front.
Well, on that subject, I think we're pretty much good to go. I think I'd love to have you on again later on, once you're, you have your own cable network television
Oh
show.
my gosh, please.
Well, we're reaching the end of the podcast now, but before I go, I wanted to obviously say thank you for coming on. It's been such an honor having you, and I'm so glad you had the time to do this for me. It means a lot, and I love you. And for everyone listening, if you guys want to reach out to Allie, you can reach out to her Instagram, her TikTok, and also subscribe to her email list. I'll leave all that information in the bio. And if you obviously have any questions outside of that, even pertaining to women's health, you can reach out directly to her. She's an amazing resource for that. And definitely subscribe to her and watch her stuff if you haven't. Her content is incredible and super educational. Yeah, besides that, do you have any last words, Allie? Anything else to address that I might have missed?
No, I love you. This is really
Love you
fun.
too.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Been an honor having you on, and I'm glad that we're friends still.
Yeah, me
even
too.
though you don't like Dua Lipa. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out with Hamza. Take care.